Alright, so today I'm going to use a technique that, like I said in the post earlier, I don't think I created. So I was going to say I'm not arrogant enough to believe I created it, but I am. But I don't think I created it. But it's a technique I've not seen widely used. And it's a technique that can be used pretty much by anybody with any skill level to get good looking results on a miniature super fast. So if you're brand new to painting or you're just starting out in painting, this can be used to paint D&D figures or board game miniatures or war game miniatures or pretty much any kind of miniatures. And it's a relatively quick process. I have 3 miniatures here today. I have this Viking looking dude who could be used in many different types of systems. I have this skeleton guy, and I have a pirate. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get through all 3 today, but I'm going to start with this guy. He's the most detailed. So we're going to start with him. And I'm just going to go one color at a time here, and we'll see how it works out. Starting with Iron Breaker, which is just your basic silver paint. These paints are not required. Any paints will work. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I will throw I always upload these to YouTube afterward. If you can't watch live and want to watch later or want to see any other videos that I have, you can follow that link and it'll take you right to it. So the idea with this technique is that you take paint and you get your brush decently loaded up. Let's see if we can get that focused. Decently loaded, but not completely covered. And then what you want to try to do is just get the tops of things. So let me explain what that means. So I'm going to start with the chainmail here. And so normally when you paint something, you want to cover that thing with paint. But in this case, you're just going to do the tops. So chainmail has a bunch of holes in it, but also a bunch of ridges. So I'm just going to go along, and I'm only going to get the tops. I'm going to use the side of the brush, and I'm just going to get the tops of this stuff, leaving the dark brown that the miniature is in the recesses below that. So I'm just going to go through and do that whole thing. And this way, the primer that we have on here, which is in this case a dark brown, will show through and do all of our shading and shadows for us. And this is key when either you're new to painting and you don't really know how to make shadows work, or if you just want to get stuff done really quickly because you're throwing out an entire other step you have to do. We're literally just going to lay one coat of paint on each piece of this miniature, and he's going to be done. So I'm just going to get the silver all over the chainmail here. I'm going to go along the edges of the chainmail where he has this banding. And I'm just going to make sure to cover most of it, but not all of it, just to leave some brown poking through. Alright, and that's the chainmail done right there. Then I'm going to move on. I'm going to do his sword the same way. So his sword has, basically a sword is divided into 2 sections, in this case, the left and the right. So I'm just going to take the side of the brush. I'm going to go down one side. And then I'm going to go down the other side, leaving a little bit of brown in between them. And it can come together at the end, no big deal. I'm just going to flip the sword around, do the same thing on this side. Just quick touch those parts there, and there you go. I'm going to do the same thing with the shield. Shield has this part in the middle. I'm just going to touch that part right there, and then I'm just going to go around the shield rim, just touching the edges with the side of the brush. If a little bit spills over onto the other part of the shield, it's no big deal. do this on this side of the the shield also. Make sure my brush is not drying out on me. And go all the way around this shield rim. All right, we'll call that silver done. So we're just going to go to the next color, and we're going to do the exact same thing we did on the silver. So I'm going to take just a medium sort of bluish, grayish color. It's called rust gray in this case. But again, the exact color is not required. And I'm going to do his cape or his cloak in the exact same way. So as you can see, his cape has all these different ridges and stuff on it. So I'm just going to paint the ridges. Not going to worry about getting complete coverage of everything. I'm just going to paint the ridges. So I'm just using the side of my brush. And I'm just painting wherever the brush happens to take me, getting all the high parts. Just going to come down here and do this. And just make sure to get all the ridges. And in this case, because there's quite a bit of depth on this, I'm going to go a little deeper and just make sure that there's some blue going down into some of these ridges, at least a little bit. So we don't want the cape to read brown, just meaning we don't want it to look brown. We want the cape to look blue, but we want our shading to be done for us. So I'm just gonna get some paint going down into this crevice here. Same thing up here and in here. I think a little bit more down here, the very bottom. And then I'm just going to make sure to get the front of the cape also in the exact same way. Just the tops of each part. And then I'm going to get the back of the cape, or the inside of the cloak. Just like that. Flip them around to make this a little easier. And just get the back of the cape. Not going to worry too much about this part in here, because it's covered by the rest of the miniature. We'll never see it. And there's your cape done. So, I'm going to move on to the next color. I think I'm going to do his... What am I going to do next? I think I'm going to do his under tunic. So I think I'll do that in red. Whenever you're painting a miniature, it's nice to think about contrasting your colors. And blue and red, while not exact opposite contrasts, they still contrast well together. I'm using Mephiston red for this. It's just another GW paint. And I'm just going to do the same thing on his undercloak. We'll hold him upside down so we can paint him as an Australian. I like it. All right. Just gonna get there. Make sure to get both his sleeves with this. And I'm just going to make sure to get the back of his sleeve here. It's pretty much covered, but doesn't hurt. And then just right below his chainmail here, he's got a little edge of tunic. So I'm going to make sure to touch that with some red in a couple places. And that's his under tunic done. So now I'm going to move on to... I guess I'll do his belts now. He's got a lot of belts all over him. So for that, I'm going to use a Talarn Sand, which is a sort of light tan color, moving a little towards yellow. Under tunic. Makes note to have a medieval clothes terminology talk with Greg. Look, it's a tunic, and it's under something else. I think I described it perfectly. So again, same way we've been doing all this. I'm just going to get some paint on my brush, and I'm just going to touch the tops of each part. So right there, go along here, leaving some of the brown still showing. Just going to touch each one of the belts here. Just like that. I'm also going to do his bag at the same time. It would make sense for his bag to be in the same material as his belts. Just going to do that. And then I'm going to do his scabbard. Same exact way. Don't want to coat the whole thing. Just put enough paint on it to let the brown do all the work. Alright. So there you go. I'm going to do the handle of the dagger here. We'll come back and add a little bit of silver to that in a minute. In fact, I think I will take the silver back now. Going back to the iron breaker, same silver I used earlier for the other metal. And I'm just going to touch the end of the dagger here, the hilt of the dagger, this armband that I forgot first time I did it, and I'm going to touch the back of his shield here, where he's got some metal bands holding his shield together. Just like that. Then I'm just going to double check that we don't have any more metal on him. We do have some metal on the handle of his sword, but we will do that in a different color. So I'm going to do his pants. And so far, I have a very saturated red, a desaturated blue, and then some neutral colors. So I'm going to go for because that red is really popping, I'm going to go for a pretty saturated yellow to be his pant color. So for this I'm using Averland Sunset. And just like everything else on this miniature, we're just going to get some on the brush and touch the tops of different things. So I'm just going to touch all the ridges on his pants. Hopefully they're still called pants so I don't get yelled at in chat again. Again, not looking for full coverage. Just enough coverage. That's what we want out of this. And there you go. That's the pants done. Now I'm going to do his boots. Those I think I'll do in a medium brown color, but a different medium brown than the one I used on his belts. So I'm going to go with a Steel Legion drab for this one. It's another light tan, but not exactly the same color. Again, I'm just going to touch the tops of everything. And like I said at the beginning, this technique can be used on almost any miniatures, but it's a good technique for beginners because it doesn't require any difficult or hard to learn skills. You just touch the tops of stuff with paint on your brush. Anybody can do that. So now I'm going to do the beard, and he's a Viking, and we like stereotypes for Vikings. So we're going to do his beard in a nice blonde color. You know what? I'm going to go over the top blonde too. I'm going to use some Dorn yellow. A nice, bright, pale yellow. Make this Viking understand that he has been stereotyped. So I'm just going to touch all the ridges of the beard. And get his hair also. Make sure to get all the hair on the back of his head also. Alright, and there's that. Then I'm going to do the helmet. I think I'll do part of the helmet in silver. And that's going to be this face guard he has here. So again, just touching the ridges that it has on it. And then I'm going to go around the band of the helmet there, just with a line. Get the back band. Good. And then the band that goes around the bottom of the helmet. Talking about pants in the comments. I like it. Alright, so we're almost done, really. We've just got a couple colors left now. I'm going to do probably his skin, his helmet, and his shield. And a Viking is basically the fun part of painting a Viking is painting the shield, because they can have any sorts of colors they want on them. So I'm just going to do the skin real quick first. I'm going to use a nice skin color called Kislev Flesh for this. And skin is one of the most rewarding parts of this technique, because normally painting skin is a pain, but in this technique, it's easy. You just touch some of the skin there. Do a little touch in between the parts of the helmet here. Like that, and like that. And then do the hands. Just leaving a little bit of brown between the fingers. Just like that. Do the other hand. Like this. Make sure we get the back of the hand. And there you go. Skin is done. So now I'm going to get a brass color, bronze color, and do the hilt of the sword. I'm going to use brass scorpion for this. And again, just touching the places that are going to be bronze. Leaving the brown, though, in some places. Alright. Alright, and then we just have the helmet and the shield left. So I'm going to do the internal panels of the helmet and the shield in the same color. Do that in a nice wood color. I'm going to use Gorthor Brown for this. Just going to get some on my brush here. And then I'll get that bit of excess water off there. And then just come in and put a little bit of color in there. Doesn't have to be a thick coat. Just the more texture this has, the better it will end up looking. Ah, good to know. The trim on the upper edge of the scabbard would usually be brass also, if you wanted to go further on it. Good to know, good to know. Just Get some more of this brown color here and do the back of the shield. And I'm just going to go with the planks that are already on the shield, conveniently. And I'm just going to do this, running across to get some contrast on there. And the same thing back here. All right. For the viewers who may not know, Gorthor Brown protects against airstrikes. That's absolutely true. This paint right here protects against airstrikes. I know. It's hard to believe, but it's true. All right. So then we're going to do the most fun part of a Viking, and that's painting his shield. And I think today we're going to go a little crazy. We're going to use a combination of Genestealer Purple, which is a light lilac kind of purple, and Baharoth Blue, which is a light bright blue. Just for fun. I don't know if these colors even existed back in the day. Don't care, we're doing it. So the classic Viking shield is I don't know what you call it, divided into 6 segments, sometimes 8 segments, whatever. I'm going to do 6 on this one. So you just come down and you paint a little triangle. Boom. Then you go around here, paint another triangle. Boom. You come over here, and you paint another triangle. And then once you've painted those triangles, you fill those triangles in. Remember, leaving some brown around the edges. The key with this technique is you never want two paints you're applying to touch. You always want there to be brown in between your colors. Just gonna sharpen that up. Fill in this last triangle here. And then switch to our other color. Rinse our brush off. Accidentally turn our light off. Turn the light back on. That's key. And get the Genestealer Purple. And fill in the other sections. Remember, leaving a little bit of brown in between each one of these. So we're not worried about right up close. Doesn't matter right up close. If someone wants to pick up your miniature and critique you on how accurately you filled in your shields when you're playing just a friendly game of D&D, well, maybe it might be time for that person to leave the party. All you need is something that looks decent. And that's what this will do for you. Just going to go back and make sure that purple's nice and filled in. All right, and there's the shield done. So let's check the time here and see how long that Viking took us. From start to finish, 125. So it took about 23 minutes, give or take, to do that Viking. And I think you could easily stick him on the table right now and have no issues whatsoever. I have another one around here that I did yesterday just as a test. So I think if you had these two, running around the battlefield, maybe as D&D characters or in Blood Rage or any sort of skirmish game or anything, I think you could easily not be embarrassed. So yeah, that's basically the technique though, is you just want to touch the tops of everything and let the brown primer do the work for you. You can also do this technique with not brown, we did brown, with black. And even a light gray or a dark gray in some situations. I tend to find brown works the best though for natural things, and by natural things I mean people. If you were doing robots or something, you might want to do a black instead. But for these kind of things, it's all set. All right, so then I guess since there's still plenty of time left, I'm going to move on to this skeleton. And I'm going to do the same thing if the camera wants to focus on him. There he is, this skeleton. I'm going to do the exact same thing I just did with that Viking, but with this skeleton. So I'm going to start with a nice bone color. We're going to start with his bones. In this case, I'm going to use Wraith Bone. If I had a paint called Skeleton Bone, I would use it. But we're going to have to go with Wraith for now. So I'm just going to come in, and everywhere that he has a bone, I'm going to paint this color on. Making sure to leave some brown underneath. Chocolate skeletons. He does look a little chocolatey, doesn't he? Where this effect is going to sell the best is going to be on his feet. Just going to touch the bones there. As you can see, it's a little messy on the feet, but doesn't matter. I got the effect. That's all that matters. I'm going to get his other leg here. And that's a shin guard, it looks like, so I'll wait to do that in a metal. Let me get his rib cage here. And in here. Talking to yourself in the comments. I like it. Alright, gonna get his face in here. I think he's a skeleton that's come to life, obviously. So maybe we'll put a different color on his eyeballs later. But for now, we're just painting his bones. Into his hand. And he's got his other hand peeking around the shield here. Spin him around. Get his arm. His rib cage. Back of his hand, back of his legs. You just want to make sure that you don't miss any parts, because leaving the part completely brown will tend to look a little weird. So you just want to make sure you get everything. Add a little more color to this leg. It looks a little skinny. Looks to have the remains of a shoe on that one though, so just going to put a little bit right in here. Alright, so there's the bone done. Now, I think I will move on to his armor. For that, I'm going to use silver like we did in the first one, but a darker silver. I'm going to use Iron Warriors for this. And I am going to just touch the tops. I'm going to have too much paint on my brush, that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to touch the tops of all his armor. And I'm going to get his sword while I'm at it. And his shin guard. Sword. Yeah, we'll do the sword. So I'm just going to do up from the top there, and then do this bottom edge, leaving a little bit of brown on there. Same thing on this side. At least you weren't late to the stream. That's true. That's true. Alright, I'm going to do his shoulder pads here. guy is the one talking about being late to the chat. He's the one who records all my colors for me, so when I upload my videos to YouTube, I don't have to watch the whole video back to place the color graphics in my video. It's a very, very helpful thing to have someone to do that for me. Alright. Get the dagger, I guess. Right there. Alright. I'm going to do the shield in a color, so it won't be silver. I'm going to now do his robes, his tunic, whatever that happens to be. I'm going to do it in a sort of a dark gray black color, Corvus black. And you might originally think that with a brown supposing to be our shadows, that putting black on the miniature wouldn't work. But the whole effect together means that it will. The eye will just see the brown as highlights instead of shadows, and it will all keep working. Just gonna get that on here. Yeah, only off by 5 minutes. Could be worse. Spin them around and get the rest of this tunic. Just again, touching the tops of things. Put a little too much gray on the back of the miniature there, but that's okay. It's the back of the miniature. No one will see it. And again, if they're looking that closely at your miniatures, well, whatever. Okay. I'm going to do his belts and his scabbard. I'm going to use... What am I going to use for that? I'm going to use Steel Legion Drab for that. A nice medium brown color. I'm just going to get the remains of his boot that once was over here. Strap on the back of his shin guard. There doesn't appear to be anything else there. We get his belt here that I accidentally painted like a bone. It's okay, we fixed it. And then we're going to do his shield, and he'll be done. The camera doesn't want to focus on his shield, or on him today, but nonetheless, he's almost done. So, to start off, I'm going to do him like he maybe was a crusader at one point. So I'm going to start with some white. And this is... Nope, this is the wrong white. I picked up the wrong white. That would probably work, but we're going to use Vampiric Highlight for this. And just going to apply it to the shield. But I'm going to apply it to the shield knowing that I'm going to come back and put in a red cross on his shield because I'm going to say he's a crusader. So I'm just going to put it in the 4 quadrants of the shield here. Just estimating where I think it would be. So we'll go about there. Keeping in mind I want to leave more space than how big the cross would actually be because I want to leave some brown in between the white and the red sections. Just going to do this. His shield's sort of broken over here, so. And then we're going to take a red. In this case, I think I'm going to do Mephiston red again. And in this case, I'm going to get paint on my brush, and then I'm going to wipe a decent amount of it off. It's because he's a skeleton. Assuming at one point he was buried, so things would have faded. So I don't want my red to be as saturated as it might normally be. Like it may have faded a little bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and squiggle that in there. Make sure it's not drawing too brown, but that we still get the idea that it was red at some point. Then I'm just going to go back into my white and touch these tiny bits where I messed up here and fill the white in a little bit more. All right. And that's him done. Again, super quick, but if you needed 5 skeletons for a D&D adventure, or, you know, a couple skeletons for a miniature game you're playing, you could knock these out. You could knock 5 or 6 of these out in an hour easily. Just using this same technique of only touch the tops of things. So let's check the time. I think we're going to call it there for the day. So here's the final examples of this technique. Again, if you get really up close, you can see they're not high fidelity paint jobs. But when you get far away here, let me zoom out. When they're sitting on the table and they're having their little fight here, you can definitely tell they're painted. That's what's important. It looks like you knew what you were doing at least a little bit. So hopefully you learned something. If you didn't, well, maybe I'll be able to teach you something next time. But like I said, I put the link to the YouTube channel in the comments. If you want to check out this video at a later date or any of the other videos I have, please do. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. Otherwise, I will be back streaming some other technique that is useful for beginners next Wednesday. Yeah. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.